That concludes the statement, and I'll give the front benches a few moments to change over. Statement, Minister Gareth Thomas.
With your permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wish to make a statement on the Post Office, on Horizon redress and Post Office finances. We inherited a Post Office in crisis. It had a very grim past, a poor commercial track record, unstable leadership, and its record on compensation was widely perceived as legalistic, slow and adversarial. Since this government came into office, the total amount of redress paid to victims of the Horizon scandal has increased more than 3.5 times. Since July last year to the 31st of March this year, more than 3,300 victims have received compensation for the first time. Approximately £892 million has now been paid to over 6,200 claimants. We have too established a new compensation scheme, so those postmasters who finally had their convictions overturned by Parliament last year get redress. And we are working on our approach to redress for postmasters who fell victim to the flaws in the capture system. Unlike the previous government, we set out a clear forecast for compensation within the autumn budget, £1.8 billion from 24-25. As the House will know, the government previously committed to provide the majority of GLO claimants with substantial redress by the end of March. I can confirm that, as promised, 76% of those who submitted claims for compensation have received substantial redress. All those who submitted an offer before Christmas have received an offer, or in one case, a substantial interim payment instead. We will also take further steps to increase the pace at which claimants' challenges can be resolved fairly. Facilitated discussions will be reintroduced to the GLO scheme for this purpose. Most recently, we announced that from the 3rd of June, my department will take over responsibility for the overturned conviction scheme from the Post Office. We have also welcomed Fujitsu's commitment to contribute to the government's compensation for the victims of this scandal. During a meeting between the Secretary of State and Fujitsu's Chief Executive Officer in March, an agreement was reached to begin talks ahead of the conclusion of Sir Win Williams' inquiry. The House will be aware that the Secretary of State announced the government's intention to establish an appeals mechanism for claimants who were unhappy with offers they have received under the Post Office's Horizon shortfall scheme. We are today publishing the guidance and principles for these HSS appeals, and by the end of this month, we will begin to accept applications from eligible postmasters currently in the Post Office's dispute resolution process. That document sets out the underlying rules that will govern the assessment of appeals. It also provides information to help postmasters and their legal representatives in making their claims, such as the eligibility criteria. We have developed this in consultation with the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board, claimants' lawyers, and representatives from postmaster organisations. Later this month, we will begin writing to the legal representatives of potentially eligible postmasters currently in the Post Office's dispute resolution process, inviting them to transfer their claim into the new HSS appeals scheme. Where postmasters do not have legal representatives, we will write to them directly. And shortly after this, we will open the scheme to all other eligible postmasters. Like the GLO scheme, my department will aim to respond within 40 working days of submission of a substantially complete appeal in at least 90% of cases. We will encourage postmasters entering the process to engage legal advisors, and we will meet their reasonable legal costs through a tariff that we've agreed with claimants' lawyers. Postmasters will not have to pay a penny of income tax, capital gains tax, national insurance contributions, corporation tax or inheritance tax on any compensation they receive through the new process. As we look to the future, we will also continue to address any concerns about the Post Office's past behaviour. I'm therefore pleased to provide an update on the Post Office Process Review Scheme. This government-funded scheme will provide redress to postmasters who lost out financially due to issues related to Post Office products, policies or processes. These issues are unrelated to Horizon, but part of the company's efforts to rebuild trust with its postmasters and ensure that past failings are fully addressed. It's due to launch in the next month, and Post Office will write to all those potentially affected with further details, including information on how postmasters can apply. We will consider carefully the conditions and recommendations of Sir Win Williams' inquiry when it is published. Alongside tackling the awful legacy of the Horizon scandal, this government is determined to make the Post Office more sustainable for the future. We remain committed to publishing a green paper to consider the long-term future of the Post Office. In particular, I look forward to hearing the vision and ideas of stakeholders such as key trade unions, sub-postmasters and others. Mr. Speaker, it has been apparent, Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg your pardon, it has been apparent for some time that Post Office is heavily reliant on government funding. The Post Office Chair's transformation plan announced in November the aim of putting the company on a path towards financial stability and delivering a new deal for postmasters. This plan requires the company to take difficult decisions, for example, looking seriously at efficiencies in its headquarters and in the branch network to ensure it is fit for purpose. Today, Post Office announced that it would be moving to a fully franchised network as part of those plans. This will realise significant savings, potentially £100 million over the duration of this Parliament. Many members wrote to me with their concerns about their local directly managed branches prior to this announcement. We have heard these concerns. The Post Office will therefore ensure that each directly managed branch will be franchised, either on-site or in a location nearby, so that service provision will remain in place in communities. Making these changes will ensure that the company is more sustainable. To support the provision of the Post Office in every community across the UK, the Government plans to provide up to £83 million of subsidy next year. This is up from the £50 million provided under the last Government and is in addition to the uplift that we provided in the last financial year. The Post Office needs to transform the outdated technology it depends on. We plan to provide up to £136 million of funding for the Post Office's new future technology portfolio in the 25-26 financial year. Over the next 5 years, this work will address technology needs across the business, including replacing Horizon, reducing central costs, and making sure postmasters have the tools they need to serve their customers. And finally, to enable Post Office to continue to administer redress payments to postmasters and to the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry, Government will provide up to £57.9 million of funding. These funding streams are subject to the Subsidy Control Act and referral to the Competition and Markets Authority. An announcement on Banking Framework 4 has not yet been made. However, I am hopeful that there will be a positive announcement soon as post offices continue to provide vital banking services up and down the country in every community. Together, these steps will help pave the way towards a more sustainable future for the Post Office. Lastly, Madam Deputy Speaker, in my engagement with the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters, concerns have been raised that Post Office may have acted improperly during the network transformation programme during the 2010s. There are claims Post Office and their representatives put undue pressure on postmasters and may have provided unregulated financial advice to encourage them to move onto contracts that were ultimately not in their best interests. These allegations must be taken seriously. I am therefore commissioning an independent review into the conduct of this programme to establish whether there was any improper or coercive behaviour, and I will update the House on the scope and timing of this review in due course. It remains our priority to speed up the delivery of fair compensation to all the victims of the Horizon scandal and to secure and strengthen the Post Office for the future. There is more to do, but I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Secretary of State Kevin Hollinrake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for his statement and for advance sight of it. Can I also thank the campaigners on this issue who I worked with from both the back benches and the front benches for over 5 years, and indeed for the Horizon Redress Advisory Board, for the Noble Lord Arbuthnot and the Noble Lord Beamish for their work on that body, which we put in place on a cross-party basis during our tenure. I agree with the Minister, although good progress has been made, there is much more to do. It is good that £892 million has been now paid out to 6,200 postmasters. That is a tenfold increase on the situation we saw only a couple of years ago. It is clear that most of that has gone out of the door because of what this Parliament did in last June in terms of overturning those convictions by statute, and because of the introduction of fixed sum awards, which have revolutionised the ability to pay compensation quickly. I am proud to say we did all that in this House on a cross-party basis, and it's the right thing to do. I worked with the then Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade, and also himself and others in their particular roles. Indeed, this was very much supported by the then Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Friend, the member for Richmond and Northallerton, the Leader of Opposition, the then Business Secretary, the Chancellor, and I say his shadow ministers. We did that on a cross-party basis. I am a little bit disappointed, therefore, that he seeks somehow to talk about what he took over in terms of a crisis. We had made much progress on this matter, cross-party, and the remarks I make are very much on that, or will continue to be on that basis. But all the progress he has talked about in his statement, there is not one single thing I heard on the Horizon programme, the progress that's been made, that was not already in train, set by the previous government in conjunction with the opposition at that time. He talks about a 3.5-fold increase in July, which I absolutely welcome, but he will concede that has come because of the overturning of those convictions by Parliament and because of the introduction of the compensation schemes. The Horizon Compensation Redress Scheme, Conviction Redress Scheme, for example, was something put in train by the previous government with the opposition's cooperation, as was the investigation into capture. He talks about the fact this was not budgeted for. That is just not right. It is not right. If he reads the budget of last year, it simply says, it says it's been reallocated from departmental expenditure into annual managed expenditure, to try and imply that the money was not there to pay out to postmasters when the work had been done cross-party. I think it's absolutely wrong to give that impression to the people out there who are still waiting for redress. The HSS appeals system was something we advocated and put in place, as were the fixed sum awards on overturning convictions and in terms of Horizon shortfall scheme. He talks about, again, the unstable leadership. We changed the chair. We thought it was the right thing to do to put a new chair in place, and we have every confidence that the chair we did put in place, Nigel Railton, will do a fantastic job, and we support him in his transformation plan and the move to a fully franchised network, which we think is the right thing to do. If I can just ask the Minister some questions, if I may. On the capture programme, it is not clear what he's going to do with victims of that particular programme, which has been acknowledged. The Post Office was at fault in some of those cases. Whether he's going to bring forward legislation to overturn their convictions by statute. I know the advisory board believes that is the right way forward. In terms of compensation. In terms of compensation, it's been my position. There's something I didn't manage to implement. It's something I've advocated for when in his role, and I think the Select Committee has advocated this, that there should be a named individual overseeing the compensation schemes. I think one individual that oversees all schemes will put their name to that scheme and the reputation on the line for delivering compensation. Because although the fixed sum awards are working, the full assessment route has problems. Again, it's something he didn't mention in his statement that we were looking at was a pilot of a more tariff-based scheme where people, for example, who had suffered from mental health difficulties around this could be paid out on a more rapid basis rather than going down a full assessment route. In terms of timescales he mentions, it takes 40. There's a time parameter of 40 days in terms of response by the department to a new claim, but that clock is reset when the claimant says that claim is the wrong level. So would he again look at that? What progress is made on an interim payment from Fujitsu? What progress has been made on Ernst & Young in terms of what they should have done in 2011-12 when they were aware of the huge liabilities the Post Office had on their books for this particular problem? Will he be ambitious in terms of the banking framework to make sure that postmasters get a good deal? And what progress has the Chair made in his commitment to reduce the highest paid roles within the Central Post Office organisation management tier to make sure that more of the revenue that flows into the Post Office flows out to postmasters?
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for his comments, and I join him in the outset by congratulating the work of all those who have campaigned and continue to campaign for the victims of this horrendous scandal. And I pay tribute to the noble Lords Arbuthnot and Beamish. And if I may, in a spirit of cross-partisanship, pay tribute to him for his work in the past as well. I know he worked extremely hard to try and move things forward, and I very much respect the job that he did. He asked a series of questions, and let me attempt to do justice to the detailed questions that he asked. He asked me firstly about capture. We are actively working on a redress scheme. We've had a series of meetings with some of those sub-postmasters who were affected by the problems in the capture software and their legal representatives. He will be aware that there are a number of cases with the Criminal Cases Review Commission that we believe, at least some of which relate to capture. We think it is appropriate that the CCRC is allowed to continue to review those cases. On Fujitsu, as I outlined in my opening remarks, the Secretary of State recently met with the Chief Executive of Fujitsu globally during his visit to Japan. I have also met with the Chief Executive of Fujitsu here in the UK, and I made the point to the Chief Executive of the UK that an interim payment would be a significant step in the right direction. He asked me too about the accountants of the Post Office, and he may be aware that the Financial Reporting Council are looking at this issue. They've been talking to the Horizon Compensation Advisory Board. They are an independent body, and I'm sure he and the House will recognise that it is right that we respect the right of that independent body to do its work going forward. He said quite rightly that the full assessment of claims does have problems on occasion. That's one of the reasons why I referenced the fact that we are bringing back facilitated discussions, in particular to the GLO scheme, because whilst there has been significant progress in settling two-thirds of the GLO claims that have been put in, we think that those facilitated discussions will help to make it easier for fair compensation to be allocated in a timely way to those victims of the scandal. On interim payments, where a case for interim payments is made to us, we have always encouraged our team as ministers to make those interim payments to try and ease the financial pressures and therefore the trauma that on occasion victims are still experiencing. On request for further information, he will know that there have been there were concerns in the past about the detail of in the letters requesting further information. I have seen some previous examples of those requests, and I can well understand the frustration that sub-postmasters and their lawyers and campaigners had with those letters. Where on occasion now, when we do ask for a request for further information, it is to make sure that we can offer an increased payment to sub-postmasters going forward. But I recognise, because of the history around requests for information, there will be some scepticism going forward. We will continue to do everything we can do to get as quickly as we can do payments out to people. And I should say that we have made further steps to Madam Deputy Speaker to try to work with the Post Office to identify victims who hadn't previously come forward. Over 6,000 new claimants have now come forward, and obviously we are trying to process their cases as quickly as we can do.
Clive Efford.
Deputy Speaker, I welcome my honourable friend's statement, and in particular the reference to the discussions with Fujitsu. The Horizon software is still being used by the Post Office network, and the contract for Fujitsu, I understand, is worth about £2.4 billion lifetime value. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that Fujitsu were heavily involved in and supporting the Post Office's prosecution of innocent sub-postmasters. So therefore, can my honourable friend say just exactly how he's going to ensure that Fujitsu pay the appropriate amount of money to compensate for their role in this affair?
Well, I recognise the concern across the House, and my honourable friend has followed this issue for a long time, and I recognise his continuing interest in this topic. He will forgive me if I do not give a running commentary to the House on the negotiations that we will have with Fujitsu. We are obviously waiting too for the conclusions of Sir Wyn Williams' inquiry and his judgment about the level of responsibility that Fujitsu must accept. As I alluded to in my answer to the Right Honourable Gentleman who speaks for the opposition on this issue, an interim payment by Fujitsu would, I think, be a significant step forward.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Kuthra.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we Liberal Democrats welcome the progress that the Government has made, but the redress payment processes are still too slow. Victims claiming under the Horizon Shortfall Scheme continue to face significant upfront complexity without legal advice. I welcome the Minister's announcement that the Government will be writing to that particular group. Could he please outline a timeline by which they will receive those letters? Secondly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister announced that any compensation will not be subject to a penny of income tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax and other taxes. Could I ask the Minister to confirm whether this will require primary legislation, and if it does require primary legislation, whether it will be limited to this particular scandal or whether it could be open to redress other scandals as well? I'm thinking in particular of the cross-party campaign on Philomena's Law, where some victims of that scandal are struggling to access their compensation. Thirdly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the scandal has involved many individuals working at both the Post Office, Fujitsu and others. The Government has committed to bringing forward a statutory duty of candour and initially said they would do so by the 15th of April, which is the 36th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. Last week at Business Questions, the Leader of the House cast doubt on whether that deadline would be met because the Government says they will take whatever time is necessary to get it right. And whilst we Liberal Democrats want to see the drafting done correctly, could I ask the Minister if there's any update on when we can expect to see that come forward? Fourthly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the evidence of whistleblowers at Fujitsu was crucial in exposing the lies about Horizon. We Liberal Democrats have repeatedly called for an Office of the Whistleblower and have amendments down to the Employment Bill to strengthen protections for whistleblowers too, and I wonder whether the Government might work with us on that particular issue. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I was surprised to see today an announcement also about directly managed post offices. The Minister will be aware that there is a cross-party group of us in this House who have been infuriated by the poor communication from post office bosses on this particular process. I recognise the announcement today saying that the post office will move to a fully franchised network, but this still provides no guarantees on the range or quality of services that will be available, no guarantees on what the definition of nearby is, no guarantee that there won't be a break-in service, and no guarantee that if the franchises don't work, that those post offices will eventually be closed as well. So could the Minister set out, please, the next stages on this, because they will affect my constituents in St Albans and many constituents represented by members here today as well.
I'm grateful to the honourable lady. She's absolutely right to reflect, I think, the view of the whole House that there is still much more to do in terms of compensation. We're very clear on that ourselves as government and are working at pace to try and step up even further the rate at which compensation payments are being made. We think in just the first 9 months of this government that we have made significant progress, increasing by 3.5 times the amount of compensation that has been paid out. But I completely accept that there is more to do in that regard. We do think the launch of the Horizon Shortfall Scheme appeals process will help to address a number of cases in the HSS scheme where sub-postmasters are concerned about the offers that they have had. She asked me when letters would be going out. I set out the broad timescale in my opening remarks. I simply say to her again shortly to her, we want to get this up and running as quickly as we can do. She asked me whether new legislation would be required to implement the commitments on tax that I set out. No, it won't be required. I don't have anything to add on the particular issue of the duty of candour to what my right honourable friend, the leader of the House, said. Perhaps, though, her question is an opportunity to underline that we expect there to be a number of significant issues that arise from Sir Wyn Williams' inquiry, and we as government, and I'm sure the whole House, will want to reflect on the conclusions and recommendations that he comes up with. She mentioned specifically as well the issues around the decision to franchise the remaining directly managed branches. I've heard, as I set out in my opening remarks, the concerns across the House, particularly significant on these benches, but I recognise from others on the opposite side of the House too, about the impact losing post office services in the communities where those directly managed branches are would have. That is why we have made clear to the post office that franchised services have to remain, post office services have to remain within those communities. The starting point that we expect the post office to work to is that they will be what's called a mains franchise. So a franchise that, as well as providing perhaps the more traditional post office services such as stamps and parcels, will also provide government services such as passports and driving licences. The equivalent of what is available at the moment in those branches. I would expect in the first instance, in many senses, that those franchise services will continue to operate in exactly the same place at the moment before decisions are taken as to where they should be located in the slightly longer term. The Honourable Lady asked me what is the guarantee that services will continue to be provided in that space. She will know that there is a set of access criteria that is already published, which commits the government to 11,500 post offices to be provided. This decision on directly managed branches doesn't change those criteria, and the post office are committed to continuing to provide the service in those communities. I would expect the post office to talk to local stakeholders about the continued operation of post office services in their communities, including members of this House.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Salford Precinct's busy Crown Post Office is a vital lifeline for residents and businesses alike, especially those who collect their pensions and benefits in person. So put simply, closing it in favour of franchisement would cause local economic and social devastation, especially if services are reduced, staff are let go, and it would also put that service at the whim of the franchisee, which, as we know from the recent case of WH Smith, causes great uncertainty and insecurity. So what is the Minister doing to guarantee that Salford retains all of its existing post office services and staff in this geographical location? And what alternatives has he considered or will he consider in favour of shelving franchisement?
Well, I know that my right honourable friend has always been a great champion for Salford. and has made it very clear to me, as indeed a number of other members of the House, how significant the post office is within her community. The vast majority of post office branches that are provided across the country are already franchised branches, and often in the context of both mains and local franchises are open longer than directly managed branches. She asked me what guarantees there are. As I've set out, we have made clear to the Post Office that we want every directly managed branch to ensure that there is a mains franchised operation in place in those communities going forward. I recognise that there will be concern while that change is taking place, but obviously if members of this House have particular concerns about particular aspects of that transition as it moves forward in their constituencies, I'm obviously very happy to meet with her or indeed with any other members to discuss those concerns going forward.
John Cooper.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As a member of the Business and Trade Committee, I should remind the House that we in March recommended that the government listen harder to our recommendations. I'm glad to hear that seems to be taken on board, but I'm slightly concerned that there's a lot of back patting going on here, particularly around Fujitsu. Does the Minister not agree with me that he should be telling Fujitsu what to do and not asking them? This government seems overly deferential to lawyers. He's in charge of this. Can he not get the pace moving here? Because lawyers are getting their money, their fees, but Post Office postmasters are not getting the money at the rate that they should be.
Yeah.
The Honourable Gentleman is absolutely right to want to see progress on Fujitsu, which is one of the reasons why I've made clear to Fujitsu that I think an interim payment would be a very welcome and significant step forward. We have said in the past that we think it's important that we hear the view of Sir Win Williams, who has been looking in detail at both the responsibility of Fujitsu and particular senior leaders within the Post Office during the course of the scandal. So we need to recognise there is a process, but we're absolutely clear about our responsibility to move those negotiations forward.
Dawn Butler.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement today and all the work he's doing to redress the injustice that's happened over the Horizon scandal. As well as the National Federation of Postmasters, can the Minister also confirm that the Communications Workers Union has also been involved in decision making? And as the Minister knows, I've lobbied him very hard on my post office in Cricklewood. We really want to and must maintain those services going forward. And I think a lot of the problems stemmed from the separation of the Royal Mail and the Post Office and that privatisation. So I just wondered whether the Minister would consider discussing the possibility of a joint venture again.
Well, I know from the conversations that I've had with my honourable friend just how much she and her constituents value the Post Office in Cricklewood. As I've set out, our starting point is that a mains franchise that continues to provide the same services as the residents of Cricklewood currently enjoy will be provided going forward. So I hope they will not see any significant disruption going forward, but very happy to have a conversation with her. On her point about the Communications Workers Union, I have had many conversations since I came into this particular role with the leadership of the Communication Workers Union. As she will understand, they have been very direct in their view about the directly managed branches. In terms of them having a view and a say about the future of the Post Office, I've made clear we are determined to publish a green paper which will allow all those who are interested, including the CWU, to give us their view and vision of the future of the Post Office and the various questions about the Post Office's future.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. would the Minister acknowledge that amongst the horrific impact of the Horizon scandal is the massive brand damage of Post Office Limited and its management, with sub-postmasters currently employed, but also those in the potential workforce in the future? In our communities in the Lakes, Hawkshead, Staveley and Grasmere, currently without an operating post office and lost those services. Will he give attention to, and push Post Office Limited to do the same as well, a package to encourage people not just to remain within the Post Office, but also to attract new people, realising it will take more effort than normal to attract people into the sector? And on the issue of the franchise services, in Kendal, our Post Office shares space with the Royal Mail, and any change of site for our Post Office could threaten both. Is he aware of that, and is he cognisant of it, and will he do something about it?
So the honourable gentleman rightly underlines the significance of the Post Office, in particular in rural communities, and the challenge on occasion of finding sub-postmasters to run franchise post offices in those areas. I hope the uplift in postmaster remuneration that came just before Christmas will help to address that particular challenge. But we have made clear to the Post Office leadership that there needs to be a fundamental change in the culture of the Post Office, which they accept, that places sub-postmasters at the heart of the operation going forward. They therefore have set up both a consultative council to make sure sub-postmasters have a very direct input into the future direction of the Post Office, and are doing more through a postmaster panel to bring postmasters in to understand the different processes that they use, and to rebuild confidence in the way the Post Office management handle some of the bigger challenges facing the Post Office. On the specific issues around Kendal, I will happily consider any request or any point of concern that the Honourable Gentleman raises about Kendal. If he is not satisfied with progress to address those points, then he's very welcome to get in contact with me further down the line.
Luke Aikenhurst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very proud of the campaign that I've been involved in locally alongside councillors and residents to save Chesterley Street Post Office. Although it's disappointing that Chesterley Street Post Office is going in its current form, I'm relieved the services have been saved. I recognise the market for traditional post office services has been in decline for some years. Does the Minister share my disappointment that the management of the Post Office did not have the commercial imagination to find new business streams utilising their brand and their network of prominent high street locations?
Well, I commend my honourable friend for his campaign. I recognise just how much the Chesterley Street Post Office is valued by his constituents, and he's made clear that point a number of times to me in his representations. On the commercial future of the Post Office, it is absolutely true that postal services in this country, as indeed in a number of other countries too, are facing significant pressures, and therefore it's imperative that the Post Office management here in the UK look at what they can do to capitalise on new opportunities, particularly in terms of banking. The Chairman of the Post Office and indeed the Chief Executive of the Post Office, Nigel Railton and Neil Brocklehurst, completely get this point, and we are actively talking to them about what more we can do. I very much hope that we will hear positive news about Banking Framework 4, which I hope will be a significant step forward in this regard. But I think there is more that can be done in this space.
Sir Julian Smith.
Madam Speaker, third-party litigation funding played a key role and controversial role at the start of this crisis. Following Supreme Court judgments recently, that access to justice that postmasters had at the start is under threat. What discussions is he having with his government colleagues about how third-party litigation funding worked in this situation, and what needs to improve as it moves forward?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman will have to forgive me, but I've been very focused on the effort to increase compensation to the victims of the Horizon scandal. That has been the immediate challenge. facing this government in this policy area, something that we heard loud and clear in opposition that we wanted to see progress on. I suspect, as I alluded to earlier, that Sir Wyn Williams' inquiry will range quite widely in terms of its recommendations. And obviously, if it touches on the particular issue that he has raised, we will look at it extremely carefully. More generally, I suspect that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Justice, will be interested in the questions that he's asked.
Alex McIntyre.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for his statement and for the update on the redress scheme for victims of the Horizon scandal. And I can also thank him for listening to my campaign to save the King's Square Post Office in Gloucester and maintaining so many vital post office services for Gloucester residents, with the announcement today that those will be franchised and continued. But will he agree to meet with me to discuss the merits of the new franchise staying in its current location on King's Square? King's Square in Gloucester has a fantastic future with the opening of a new university campus, city campus later this year, and the opening of a new forum, office, hotel and leisure facility that will be fantastic, and it will be great for the new franchise to be an important part of that future.
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for the way in which he continues to represent the interests of his constituents. He's made a number of very clear representations to me about the importance of the Gloucester Post Office. I'd be very happy to meet with him to discuss its future as it transitions to a franchise-run operation. I should make clear that the Post Office very much want these franchises to be in key locations that are important for communities, because obviously that's where the commercial income will come from. So they will be actively keen to meet with stakeholders such as members of this House and other local stakeholders. But if he would like to meet with me to discuss this issue further, I'd be very happy to do so.
Alistair Carmichael.
Madam Deputy Speaker, where a post office branch that is currently directly managed is not to stay in its current premises, will there be a proper formal scheme of community engagement to ensure that the community has some control over ensuring that what is provided in its place will be at least as good? Because communities simply do not trust the post office at the moment to make that judgment for themselves.
No, it's a completely fair point that the honourable gentleman makes, that there is the post office suffers for all the reasons that we know, from a significant lack of trust. I completely understand why the right honourable gentleman would want to press the particular point that his community should be involved in discussions about their post office services going forward. As I alluded to earlier, I would expect the post office to engage with local stakeholders, including him as the local member of Parliament. But if he is at any point concerned about those discussions, he's very welcome to get in contact with me, and I will happily meet with him.
Helen Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents are served by Crown Post offices in Brixton and East Dulwich, both just outside my constituency boundary and both in areas that have seen the near complete withdrawal of high street bank branches, leaving residents and businesses dependent on the post office for banking services as well as the wide range of other services that they provide. The Minister knows that the big difference between a Crown Post Office and a franchised post office is that no one in the public sector has any say in the public interest over whether a franchised post office remains open or indeed whether a franchisee can be secured. What assurance can my honourable friend give that post office franchises opened in place of Crown Post Offices will remain open for the long term?
So I recognise the significance of the two post offices that my honourable friend has referenced in Brixton and East Dulwich to her constituents, and I recognise that there will be concern in her constituency about the long-term future of those post offices. I will make sure that whilst she is not the constituency member of Parliament, that she is nonetheless consulted about the future of those post offices, because I recognise that particularly in urban areas, such as the one that she and I represent, that people outside of the immediate constituency will be reliant on those post offices. As I've said, the post office does want to make sure that it finds locations in the long term that are at the heart of commercial activity in communities, because obviously that's where its future income depends on. But given the point about the lack of trust for the post office, it is absolutely important that there is conversations with local stakeholders, including members of this House. And in her particular case, given the point she's made, I will make sure she is also included in conversations about those two particular post offices.
Dr Kieran Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. More than 4,000 residents have signed my cross-party petition opposing the closure of the Bexhill Crown Branch, and I think it's fair to say that this whole situation has been made much worse because the Minister's allowed the Post Office to put the cart before the horse, with a decision taken on closures ahead of a clear guarantee on what will come next for all of our constituents. And I noticed in a number of questions the Minister has talked about should, expectations, starting points. Those are not cast iron guarantees. So can the Minister give a cast iron guarantee that he will veto the closure of any branch replacement for the Crown Service in Bexhill if it doesn't provide exactly the same services as the current branch is providing?
Well, I recognise from the meeting that he and I had, and the meeting that I had with one of the Labour councillors who represents Bexhill, the strength of feeling about the potential threat to the post office in Bexhill. As I have made clear, we are clear and have been clear to the post office that they should replace the directly managed branch with a mains franchise. That's what I expect them to do. I would expect there too to be a consultation with local stakeholders in Bexhill, including him as the Member of Parliament. And if, as I've said in answer to other members, if he has concerns about that process, he's very welcome to get in contact.
Joe Powell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for meeting with me on the directly managed branch in my constituency of Kensington and Bayswater on Kensington High Street, and the more than 1,000 residents who joined my campaign to save the services at the branch. Today's news is welcome for them, but can the Minister give us some reassurance around when the transition will take place from the current system to a franchise model, and what guarantees he has on continuing service levels?
Well, I welcome my honourable friend's question, and I recognise that he has campaigned on this issue, and he's certainly made representations to me as he has set out. As I've said to other members of the Parliament, who've asked questions already in this House, he and other local stakeholders should expect to be involved in discussions about the future of post office services in Kensington and that transition to a franchise. We have the expectation, and the Post Office have made clear that they accept this expectation, that it will be a mains service going forward. A mains, as opposed to a locals franchise, provides government services such as passports and driving licences, etc. I can't give him an exact time frame for when those discussions will begin, but following this announcement, the Post Office have already begun to have conversations with staff and have been having conversations with potential franchisees. So I would expect them to begin to start getting in contact with members of Parliament over the next few months.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Tony Hibbard is a former sub-postmaster from Collerton in East Devon, and he is 84 years old. It's 4 years since he submitted his claim, 14 years after his wrongful dismissal, and there's still been no meaningful progress towards a fair and final settlement that reflects the loss to Tony's reputation. Following the statement from the dispatch box on the 18th of December, I wrote to the Minister about Tony's case, and the reply I received referred to an offer made to Tony in December. No such offer was received. The Minister refers to a new Horizon shortfall appeal scheme with a turnaround time of 2 months, But I say again, Tony is 84 years old. Will the Minister urgently review Tony's case to ensure that he finally receives the compensation that he deserves?
He will understand that I don't have the details about Tony's case to hand, but he's asked me to have a look at and review the way that Tony's case is being handled. I'm very happy to do that. I am keen that as quickly as we can do, that complex cases are resolved fairly and quickly going forward. I recognise that many sub-postmasters have been waiting a long time for compensation. We have made progress, but I recognise there's more to do, and I'll very happily look at Tony's case after this and write to the Honourable Gentleman.
Amanda Hack.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Minister for his update on the progress to redress the victims of the Horizon scandals, as well as the commitment to invest in new technology. In light of the sudden closure of a post office in Colville in my constituency, what reassurance can the Minister give to current and any prospective new postmasters that the Horizon system that's still being used in post offices is now fit for purpose?
Well, we're clear that we need to replace the Horizon system. The post office are not taking, as one would expect, the whole House would expect, any criminal action when there are shortfalls. There are processes for resolving issues around shortfalls in the Horizon system. And indeed, I referenced the postmaster panel and the way in which the post office management are working with sub-postmasters to help them understand how issues like shortfalls in the computer system are dealt with going forward. So I hope slowly we are making the first initial steps to rebuild that trust.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure the Minister remembers that on the 18th of December, I raised the case of Donna from Mid Dorset North Pool, who was bankrupted for £250,000 due to the Horizon scandal. The bankruptcy was cancelled, but not before most of the interim settlement was deducted by the Post Office receiver. I was therefore shocked to receive a reply from the Minister in which he confirmed the GL approach is to deduct interim payments regardless, and I quote, of what the claimant did with the money. Madam Deputy Speaker, apparently their only option is for legal representatives to undergo a protracted appeal, incurring more costs and delay, ensuring that, of course, the lawyers get their payday before the postmasters. So can I ask the Minister to reflect on this policy, which is punishing victims again and again, so Donna gets the redress she deserves?
Well, the Honourable Lady will forgive me that I don't have the particular case that she references, those details in front of me. But since she's asked me to take a particular look again at that particular case, I will happily do so, and I will write back to her.
Mark Sewards.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Minister for his statement and also for persistently listening to me and giving me his time as I discussed the Morley directly managed branch with him over these last few months. Over 3,300 people signed my petition to keep Morley Post Office open. So it is definitely welcome that Morley will be retaining its post office, caveated by the fact that it will be a franchise and there are question marks about its location. I've also been delighted to help secure a banking hub for our community, but the services provided by a banking hub do not overlap with the services provided by a post office. So can I ask the Minister today what guarantees he can give my constituents that this new Morley Post Office will offer all the same services that they currently enjoy with the current Morley Post Office?
Well, I recognise that my honourable friend has been campaigning hard to save Morley Post Office, and he certainly made very clear representations to me on that issue. As I've said, the starting point for discussions around the future of postal services in Morley, as in other cases, is that it will be replaced by a mains post office offering government services as well as more traditional post office services. Again, if he has particular concerns about the way the transition is happening, he's very welcome to get back in contact with me.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Minister very much for his answers and clearly for his commitment to finding and addressing all of the issues and the challenges that everyone has. The Minister will be aware that the Post Office Horizon scheme was deeply flawed from the outset, and we cannot trust it to provide evidence for postmasters or postmistresses when the entire scandal is based on Horizon's unreliability. So does the Minister not agree that we have absolutely no option other than to trust the people and not the computer, and to do the right thing by those people who have been vilified? Thank you so much.
Well, I absolutely pay tribute to those journalists and campaigners who exposed the Post Office scandal and are continuing to campaign for those who've not yet received redress. I've had the privilege of meeting a number of sub-postmasters who were very badly affected by the scandal, and those conversations will stay with me for a very long time. And as I suspect for other members of the House who've had similar conversations, they are powerful, motivating conversations to try and get this sorted out.
Chris Murray.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I just put on record my complete sympathy and solidarity with the victims of the Horizon scandal, one of the biggest injustices in modern British history. I was extremely concerned in November to hear Edinburgh City Crown Post Office, based in the Waverley Station complex, the centre of Scotland's capital, was to close. I've been campaigning hard to ensure residents, commuters and businesses see no diminution in services and for fair treatment for post office staff. So can the Minister confirm that thanks to this government, a franchise post office will be established in the area, meaning continuation of service for local residents? And when does he expect that transition to take place? And will he ensure both MPs and members of the Scottish Parliament are consulted about where it will open?
Well, I recognise the particular point that my honourable friend has made about Edinburgh, and I know that he will remember the conversations we have had about the future of the Post Office, where he's made very clear to me the significance of a Post Office service continuing in that particular community. We will, as I alluded to, make sure that there are conversations between local stakeholders, including him as the constituency representative in this House, but also with his Scottish Parliament colleagues in his particular community. I recognise similarly that colleagues in Wales, such as my honourable friend, the member for Merthyr, have similarly made representations to me and are very concerned to make sure that they can continue to have conversations about the location of their post offices too.
Martin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Post Office for some is a lifeline, and although I understand the changing role the business faces given a difficult and changing market, the recent proposed closure, given repeated bank closures in the High Street of Cosham Post Office in my constituency, has caused huge concern. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Minister for constantly meeting with me and listening to me, and I would also like to thank all of my constituents who shared and signed the petition and who got in touch regarding saving our post office to show that the value that it serves. I am pleased to see that the Government and the Post Office have listened to that today, and today's announcement of a franchise model will allow Cosham Post Office the opportunity to remain open. So can I ask, what will the Minister and the Post Office do to ensure that local voices continue to be heard in the franchising process, and to ensure that Cosham Post Office retains all existing services and will stay in the High Street? And will I ask if he will continue to meet with me?
My honourable friend makes a very good point about the number of bank branch closures. Over 9,500 bank branches closed under the party opposite, and they did next to nothing to ensure any sort of service was replaced. The Post Office, therefore, provides often the last opportunity to have access to banking services on many high streets. And therefore, that is one of the reasons why we remain committed to the 11,500 commitment and the access criteria that help to ensure every community in the UK, including the people around the Cosham Post Office, can have access to post office services going forward. I will, of course, continue to meet with the Honourable Lady if that is what she requires.
Alex Mayer.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the Minister for his really positive engagement, as I've discussed with him on a number of occasions, the situation at Leighton Buzzard Post Office. Would the Minister be able to confirm that a Leighton Buzzard Post Office will remain within the High Street area? What reassurances can he give to residents about what kind of opening hours that branch will have?
Well, I know my honourable friend has pushed me repeatedly on the future of the Leighton Buzzard Post Office. We're very clear that we want the post office going forward to be located on high streets or very close to high streets, so that they can best serve local people going forward. What I can commit to my honourable friend is that she will be consulted by the post office and other stakeholders in the Leighton Buzzard community about the way in which the post office will continue to operate going forward.
Dr. Ben Coleman.
Ben Coleman. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and for the honorific as well. I'm very grateful to the Minister for his statement and for the further measures that he's taking to support the shamefully treated victims of the Horizon scandal. And I'm also very grateful and thank him for saving our beloved post office in the King's Road in Chelsea and having met with me to discuss this. I know that this news is going to be hugely warmly welcomed by my residents in Chelsea, 1,000 of whom signed the petition to save the post office in the King's Road. But can I ask him to ensure that the King's Road branch, when it's franchised, provides no less of a service than now, and ideally even a fuller one, if possible, as is already the case with the franchise branch in the North End Road in Fulham, which I also campaigned with residents to save, and which now is open 7 days a week from 7 in the morning till 9 in the evening.
Well, my honourable friend made very clear to me the significance of the King's Road post office to his constituents nearby, and I'm pleased that there will continue to be a post office service going forward. My experience when a post office that was directly managed closed and a franchise was opened up in W.H. Smith's was that actually the service was open for longer. I hope that will be the experience that his constituents can enjoy going forward. If he has particular concerns about the way in which services are going to be delivered, I'm very happy to meet with him again.
Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement. I know none of these issues are of his making, so I am really grateful to him. Edinburgh South West and Edinburgh South share 18 victims of the Horizon scandal, and I'm sure they very much welcome what he had to say. But I do want to talk about the directly managed branch in my constituency, which is in Wester Hailes. Wester Hailes is one of the most deprived parts of Scotland, so any loss in service here will be really acutely felt. And I do know through the campaign work I've done along with Councillor Stephen Jenkinson that it's used by people well beyond Wester Hailes. So I think it is really important that we take any threat to it really seriously. And it's made all the worse because the Bank of Scotland branch right across from it is closing next month as well. So I am slightly concerned as what's described as a new deal for the post office might be a bad deal for Wester Hailes. But for it to be a good deal, I think the consultation has to be right. So it has to be meaningful and it has to be tailored to meet the people of Wester Hailes. So can you reassure us that this will be a meaningful consultation which will really reach into Wester Hailes and understand the needs of the community? Thank you.
Well, I know from the conversations I've had with my honourable friend the significance of the post office in his community, and I very much hope that the experience of his community and local stakeholders, such as the councillor that he has been working with, as well as himself, will be positive when the post office sit down with him and them to talk through the transition moving forward. If he has concerns about the way those conversations are going, I remain very happy to meet with him to discuss them.
That concludes the statement, and we now come to the Select Committee